Happy Friday, wherever you may be, or whatever day it may be. Probably not Friday when you're watching this. But looking as a kind of follow-up from the video I did yesterday about Chris Cornell's first solo album, first album from Audioslave. And this came out, was it 2000 and 2001? No, it was a bit later than that, 2002. And it came out with a lot of hype surrounding it because this is what was called at the time a supergroup. So there's been a few of those through rock history, hasn't there? And they never really seem to live up to the possibilities. Well, I guess some of the older ones, like I think Cream was considered a supergroup, weren't they? And they were pretty they go down as a pretty classic band. But anyway, this was Chris Cornell with the three remaining Rage Against the Machine members, bar the vocalist, so Tom Morello, Tim Comerford, and Brad Wilk. So Soundgarden and Rage Against the Machine together. And when you hear that, initially you think, well, it's not the first groups you'd think of when you think about a combination of music. Rage Against the Machine and Soundgarden aren't the first two bands you'd think would go together at all. Because obviously Rage Against the Machine had a huge hip-hop element, rap element, because Zach De La Rocha was basically rapping the vocals as opposed to singing. But I think they made it work. I got this at the time when it came out. I remember I got it bought for me for Christmas. It must have been Christmas 2002, because this was released at the end of 2002, November-ish. And I got it for Christmas of that year. And yeah, it's a good album. It's certainly not great, and it doesn't live up to Soundgarden or Rage Against the Machine's best work. But I think as a kind of a straight-ahead rock album, it's actually not bad. Having re-listened to it over the last few days, I think it's got some good points. So, like I was talking about yesterday with Chris Cornell's solo work, it perhaps didn't perform as well as what he and the record company had hoped, and it seemed he kind of discarded it. That album, the album cycle from it was released in '99. He didn't really go through a full tour or anything like that, and there might be different reasons for that. He was going through a lot of personal turmoil from that period onwards through into the early period of Audioslave as well. So he got together with the three guys, Morello, Comerford, and Wilk, and they decided to record some music together. And apparently they had kind of instant chemistry, and they recorded a lot of songs in the kind of initial writing sessions. Cochise was the first single, and you might have seen the video for that where they're kind of playing up on this building. It looks like a building site. They're on scaffolding, and there's fireworks going off in the background, and it's quite a, I guess, again, for a kind of straightforward rock performance video, it's good. That song is a very, for me, kind of a middle of the road song. It's like kind of like a 5 or 6 out of 10 song, where I'll listen to it. It's not a bad song, and actually the riff, that's an okay riff, but Tom Morello's guitar playing is very inventive and original, but also quite one-dimensional. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I'm a huge fan of Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, maybe I'll talk about that a bit more as I go through the song. So, Show Me How to Live is a good song. Like a Stone, I think, was the big single. That's the one that you still hear on kind of classic rock radio formats nowadays. And that's a good song. I say my the 3 songs on here that I like best are What You Are, Shadow on the Sun, and the last song, The Last Remaining Light. So What You Are is clearly a song about Chris Cornell's ex-wife. that's what I always felt. He's kind of talking about breaking free of the relationship and not being a slave anymore, and he can see the person for what they are now. They've the scales have fallen from their eyes. But it's a good song. Shadow on the Sun is a song that kind of builds, starts off quite quiet and mellow and builds up. If you've ever seen the movie Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx, now I don't know, I don't want to say this for sure because I don't know if I've mixed up the movie with a fan made video on YouTube, which may have happened. But I've seen the movie twice, but obviously it didn't make that much of an impact on me if I can't particularly remember if this happened. But I think there's a scene in the movie, quite a long scene, kind of a musical break, where they're in the movie that Jamie Foxx is a taxi driver and Tom Cruise is kind of like a hitman, and they're driving around LA for some reason, and I can't. In this point in the movie, I can't remember why, but basically he's having to transport him around to different places while he does different killings and things. And but it's just a musical break in the middle of the movie where they're just driving around, and it's a very reflective mood, and that song's playing in the background. Again, I can't say 100% sure if that actually happened in the movie. The song is on the movie soundtrack, or if someone has just put that to the movie scenes and made a YouTube video, like a fan made video. If that's the case, then I recommend going to YouTube and watching that video because it's a good video. And if it's in the movie, then it's a great scene in the movie. I think that's a Michael Mann movie, and that would make sense because it really fits with the mood of his work. But anyway, it's a good song, Shadow on the Sun. I'm the Highway, that's okay. Again, bit of a middling song. Those ones there, Exploder, Hypnotize, Bring Him Back Alive, are largely forgettable for me. They don't hit you as much and as memorable as the first half of the Show Me How to Live or Gasoline or Set It Off, which is quite a memorable song. Some good riffs throughout the album. That last song, The Last Remaining Light, that for me, that's the most interesting song on the album. One of the reasons where I'm not the hugest Audioslave fan is that the thing about Soundgarden that made it so interesting was their what's the word? Not normal. What's the word I'm trying to think of there? God, the words on the top of my tongue can't say it. But basically, they approached songwriting from a unusual standpoint. They didn't follow the 4/4 straight ahead rock format of writing a song. They used different time signatures and kind of unique tunings. So I think I just read an article, Kim Thale, in one of the guitar magazines where he's talking about the tunings on Super Unknown, how every song basically had a different tuning. And it makes the songs interesting. It kind of it puts a weird slant on them, a unique slant. And for the most part, this album is very straightforward. And that's the band. Like Brad Wilk is a good drummer, but he's very much rooted in the hard rock with a little bit of funk put in there. So he's got a good groove. And the same for Tim Comerford, the bass player. Him and Brad Wilk really fit together well. They're a great rhythm section, but it makes for a very certain kind of song that they don't stray away from very much. Tom Morello, I think he does have the ability to kind of go out in different directions, but he doesn't because he's a particular kind of music he likes to write. But that last song there is interesting because it's just it sounds different, and I can't really say any more clearly than that. It would be that, like I said, that and What You Are and Shadow on the Sun are my three songs that I like. The singles they released, like Cochise, Like a Stone, Show Me How to Live. They're again good rock, straight ahead rock songs. Not bad at all, but certainly not up there with Soundgarden or Rage Against the Machine. Produced by Rick Rubin, which I guess means the band produced it themselves, because apparently Rick Rubin don't do shit when he produces. He comes in, lies on the couch, and listens to the music and kind of says that's good or that bad. And sometimes that's all bands need. You know, I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily. The cover art is done by what's his name, Storm Thorson, who's most famous for doing the Pink Floyd cover art. Almost every Pink Floyd album. Don't think he did The Wall, but he did Wish You Were Here, The Guy on Fire, and Dark Side of the Moon, which incidentally we just celebrated its 50th year release 2 days ago. Yeah, probably one of the greatest albums ever made, in my opinion. He also did he did a Dream Theater album, and lots of bands. If you look at his Wikipedia page and look at the list of albums that he did the cover art for, it's immense. So it goes through here. It's got the lyrics. The liner notes. Lyrics by Chris Cornell. Music. All songs written and arranged by Audioslave. So we need to talk a little bit about the name Audioslave. Widely considered one of the worst band names ever. Which, after a certain point, band names just become the band names, and you kind of stop thinking of the meaning, because so many band names are silly, aren't they? Smashing Pumpkins, Soundgarden, and I don't know, even the Beatles. You know, but I guess the problem with the Audioslave that people have is that it's very, I don't know, cliched, not creative in the slightest. And apparently Chris Cornell came up with it. And you just imagine he's thinking, okay, audio. Well, I was in Soundgarden. So what's another word for sound or audio? Audioslave. I'm a slave to the audio. And it's quite cringeworthy, really, when you think about how he might have came up with it. But really, it's the name of the band. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, does it? But it is a bad name for a band, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions, apparently. Storm Thorgerson is his name. So we had the lyrics and some individual member shots. I saw them, here's the whole band, I saw them in concert. They came to Auckland in, I think, 2003. They played at the Auckland Town Hall. And like I said, when I got the album, I wasn't blown away by it or anything. But I went basically because I was such a huge fan of Chris Cornell that any chance to be able to see him live, I was going to do so. And yeah, it was a good concert. Not bad at all. They did some Soundgarden songs as well. I think they did Black Hole Sun or Spoon Man. They also did some instrumental Rage Against the Machine, and Chris Cornell would go off during that part of the set. He would walk off stage and they'd just kind of jam instrumentally, because yeah, he's not going to be rapping the songs, is he? That would be a bit weird. Chris Cornell rapping. I'm sure he could have actually, but probably for the best that he didn't. But it was good seeing them. The Auckland Town Hall is a relatively small venue, so up close and personal. But that's 20 years ago now, so I don't have a lot of memories from it. But I remember Chris Cornell seemed happy, and he was really engaging with the crowd, like very polite and saying thank you and how much he appreciated everyone coming out to see a new band. And you know, no matter that he is a giant rock star and the other guys are also giant rock stars, it wasn't much of a risk for us. But anyway, so yeah, that's my overall feeling on Audioslave. A good, solid, straight ahead rock band with good groove, but we're never going to live up to the name of Soundgarden or Rage Against the Machine. And I think that kind of was always going to hold them back. But they sold millions of albums, and you know, released 3 albums up to 2007 or 8, I think, and apparently didn't end that well. Just the initial ending, breakup of the band, like it sounded like the the relationship broke down between the three guys and Chris Cornell to some extent, and he just wanted to go solo. He couldn't be bothered with it anymore. But towards the end of his life, he was actually talking very positively about a reunion, getting back to record. I know they did a couple of shows here and there, or just kind of one-off songs here or there, but he he was actually quite positive about getting together to write again and make another album again. And it would have been interesting, especially seeing as in the intervening years he had done another Soundgarden album and he had done quite a lot of solo work. It would have been interesting to hear where they would have gone. But yeah, I would say this album, if I gave, what did I give? I gave Euphoria Morning a 8 out of 10, 7.58. I'd say I'd give this a 6 to 6.5 out of 10. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. Take it easy.